and welcome back to another video. So in your computer that you're probably watching this video on, or even in your phone, you probably have an SSD. Because SSDs are fast and they're reliable. But were they always fast and reliable? Well, one random middle of the night, I was going through a non-tech, I believe, because they do reviews on SSDs, right? Getting lost in YouTube recommendations? Get subscribed because a lot of y'all aren't, so you don't miss any of my videos. I'll go back in the tunnel. And so I was like, what is the oldest major consumer SATA SSD that I could plug in today into my computer? And what I found out is that they have the first main SSD that you can plug into a SATA interface today, made from flash instead of DRAM, was by SuperTalent, released in May of 2007. And this, I believe, was somewhere around the $550 MSRP for a 16 gig drive. There's going to be specs on the side here, and so, they did a review on it and they said that this was a big step in storage, right? Okay. So it's obviously getting quite a bit faster month over month. What if we shoot 1 year later? Exactly 1 year later, a non-tech reviewed this Samsung SSD. Not this specific one, and this released apparently somewhere around May 2008. You know what else released in 2008? The WD Velociraptor, which is a slightly thicker laptop hard drive that spins at 10,000 RPM, effectively making it about 20 to 25% faster than any other normal hard drive. And I already did a review of using this in 2021. That video will be linked down below. And it was pretty impressive for the time. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through how these two first SSDs of the generation perform today compared to the WD Raptor that released right along with them. So we start off with just regular synthetic benchmarks. So we have the SuperTalent here. While empty, it gets a score of 55 write and 50 megabyte read. For the Samsung, we have a good jump forward at nearly double the speed at 95 read and 95 write, 85 read. But then we have the WD Raptor at a blistering 202 write and 198 read. Next we have is the benchmarks at 70%. And so we have the SuperTalent still at a good 55-50. The Samsung did drop a tad to 90-80, and then the Raptor dropped almost 25% to about 145 write and 164 read. So that's a big jump down just because it got full. And so, yeah, if we go ahead and go on to our Windows results, how long it takes to load into Windows and open up Microsoft Edge, which opening Microsoft Edge ensures that everything is properly loaded at that time. And what we have is that the SuperTalent is at a slow 1 minute and 57 seconds. Now, I will give it credit because technically you require 35 gigabytes to install Windows, but it will let you on a 32 gigabyte drive. But I could only get Windows to load 20% of the time with this guy. And so I'm going to say that it probably wasn't the SSD's fault for why it's slow. Purely, it's just Windows 10 was way too large for it, and so there's nothing for it. It's harder for it to load. I tried to find a 64 gig, but they didn't actually release a 64 gig as far as I'm aware, so 32 is as good as I got. For the Samsung, we got it in 42 seconds, and on the Raptor, 39 seconds. So the Raptor is still ahead, but we'll see that lead kind of shift away. The next loading test we have is Rust. We know Rust that loves to take a long time to load, especially on hard drives. Now, sadly, the SuperTalent and the Samsung could not load into an actual game. So the only load results we have is actually loading into the main menu, which even there's actually some interesting results. For the Super Talent, it took 52 seconds. On the Samsung, it took 1 minute and 25 seconds. And on the Raptor, it took 1 minute and 48 seconds. Now, what was really surprising here is how quick the Super Talent loaded in Rust. And what I'm thinking is that the Super Talent might have a ton of fast DRAM cache. What DRAM cache is basically where the storage goes. It's basically the faster bit of the SSD that you mostly use, and then whenever you're not using it, it slowly writes it to the normal NAND flash. And so what I'm assuming is that Super Talent has a much bigger DRAM cache, so it's able to quickly load into that Rust main menu. Next, because we can't actually load into a Rust game, sadly, with the SSDs, we have the Forest. The Forest is a open world, and the first time you load it, it has to generate the whole world into a as well as a cutscene. The Super Talent got it done in 8 seconds, matching our normal to modern day SSD. The Samsung took 10 seconds, and the Raptor took a little more than 9 seconds. Again, that is very, very interesting that the Super Talent is that quick. But there is one little problem. When I was installing these, I don't have install times for the Raptor because I mostly noticed this while installing Rust on the Super Talent, is that it took 40 minutes to install, and when a Steam game installs, it then verifies at the end. It actually failed the first time I tried to verify, and then I forced it to re-verify, and then it was okay. 40 minutes is what it took to install and verify. On the Samsung, it only took 12 minutes, and I had no issues verifying. So that was 3 times longer, or more actually, for the Super Talent to install Rust. So yeah, so that is interesting. And to see that a SSD of the time is still trading blows with a hard drive purely in loading type stuff is very interesting. Now, obviously, these SSDs were quite a bit more expensive than the WD Raptor, the Velociraptor. But to see the advancements in just a year is pretty interesting. And so what we're going to do next is, these have never been opened inherently, these SSDs. And so what we're going to do is open them up, and we're going to see what makes these tick from 2000 and 2008, or 7 and 2008. So we're going to just, and like I said, this has never been opened. Both warranty void stickers are on this. So while I'm opening this up, I'm actually going to show some pretty interesting things here. I'm going to say some pretty interesting things here. The Super Talent actually will not boot in a normal computer today, because most computers boot off of a AHCI standard, and Super Talent is not. This specific SSD did not support that at the time, so you have to switch it into ATA mode, which when I first got this and I put this into a hard drive dock, I was like, why is it not booting? And I thought it was a dud. I thought it was broken. And then I plugged it into this computer, and I still couldn't get it to boot. And I was like, wait, what if we change it into the older ATA mode? Booted perfectly, no issues. Another thing is, it has no smart data. So I cannot tell how long it's been used, how many gigabytes it's written, and all that. The Samsung does support AHCI mode perfectly fine, and it does have smart data, but it doesn't have a temperature reading on it, and it also doesn't have like how many gigabytes it's written and read. So that's an interesting one to know. So let's go ahead and get these unscrewed. 8 4 gigabyte packages. And then we have this controller here, which I have no idea who makes it. It looks like it could be Micron from the logo, but this board is like fully packed. Most modern SATA SSDs are actually like only a third of the way filled. And so it's actually really awesome to see a full SSD And you can even see on the PCB, it actually says Super Talent on it, so that's really cool. Oh, okay, well that's even more interesting then. So it actually has 16 packages. So I'm guessing there's 16 2 gigabyte packages. There seems to be what looks like 2 controllers here, or 2 like maybe like I/O controllers, and then a main processing chip, or maybe this side is the processing chip. That's interesting. It has apparently 16 2 gigabyte things, and I think what actually it is, I think these two might be the DRAM. This might be a controller. This might be an I/O chip, and these are the actual NAND flash. So that's interesting. Yeah, so let's get these over to the side here, and let's open up the Samsung, which actually looks like it's a bit more tricky to open because it actually uses a hex head. So hopefully I have a properly sized hex head for that. So these are actually relatively long screws. Okay, so first thing is, there's no backside to the Samsung. Okay, so this is made purely of Samsung, and this is super interesting. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show this on camera, but if you can see the rough height of these NAND packages, they're pretty low, right? These are double the height, which is because there's actually 2 NAND packages on top of each other. So there is still 16 packages here, but they're double height. And then there's a Samsung controller made by ARM, and then a small DRAM cache or DRAM package, I think here.